Thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation, your weekly dose of all things independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. I'm Jeff, and we're doing things a little bit differently this week. As you know, Josh is off gallivanting across the desert, and in his place, we're going to have a rotating panel of guests. This week, joining me from the Catholic Forge podcast, he's also an Extra Life team captain for the Married to the Games podcast, and a good dear friend of mine. Please welcome Eric Thompson.
Well, thank you, applause meter. I'm very glad to be here, Jeff, and indeed, I would gladly do a favor for any friend, but especially for you being very dear to me. Come on now, don't get me started. But our long-standing, the forge, as it were, in which our friendship was founded was, video games, and so, of course, really, truly the best wishes to Josh and his family in their transition, and I'm glad to, be a warm body in the chair for you and for him while he's adjusting. So glad to be here, really excited.
Awesome, and it is very much appreciated. For those new to the Nindie Nation, we are, again, a weekly show dedicated to independent games on the Nintendo Switch. And so our goal here is to talk you through some of the games that we're playing, what we think you should be playing. We'll dive in and talk and learn a little bit more about Eric's gaming history and some of the indies that he's experienced through his time mostly as a PlayStation and long past Nintendo gamer. And then in the second half, as we always do, we will dive into the games coming out soon on the eShop and all the games on sale that you cannot afford to miss.
Right. Yes, please.
So let's dive in. Eric, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Give the listeners an understanding of the video games that make up Eric Thompson's gaming history.
Yeah, man. I have wandered far and afield in the video game kingdom, but my beginning, as with so many, I was going to say so many our age, but so many across the span of time, was with Nintendo, was with that original NES, and bringing it home and debating my sister on who would play Mario and who would play Luigi. I remember so well, and Duck Hunt. I mean, just the whole. I remember. I think I told you before. I remember being young, maybe let's just say 8, but who knows? And I remember playing Tailspin and weeping because it was so hard. And
those Capcom Disney classics.
And that's the thing is I mean, my mom came into the room because I was weeping, and she's like, what is going on? I can't do it. And I mean, and the thing is, I was so ashamed that I of course we took it back to Fred Meyer or whatever, or maybe we rented it, whatever it was. And then later in life, when YouTube came along, and I thought, let me just double check and see how off base I was. And sure enough, that game must have been designed for like NASA scientists to play. I don't know what they were thinking back in those days. Of course, we hear tales of other games like Battletoads, just basically impossible to beat. But anyway, so there's my Tailspin trauma story.
It's funny. I had a similar story where with the NES, where my mom came into me screaming and crying, and it was right that summer where the Super Nintendo had just come out, like 91 or 92. And it was, not too long after it released, and all the kids were playing Street Fighter 2, because that was an early Super Nintendo game.
Right.
And that wasn't on the Nintendo, and I didn't have the Super NES yet. So I went to Blockbuster, and in their like bargain bin, I bought Street Fighter 2010, which was like kind of an original game made by the same team that was almost like a Strider or a Double Dragon. It was like a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and it was terrible. And I was, for some, I got that game. That was my game for the weekend. And I got to a part that was really hard. And I was leaning back in my chair with feet up on the TV stand of the 13-inch TV I was playing it on, and I fell backwards while I was playing the game, and I like nailed my head on the corner of my bed and ripped the controller out, and the NES went flying. And so my mom comes into me like laying on the ground, and I was yelling and crying, but like I don't think it actually hurt. It was just the combination of
the frustration,
emotions, the emotions going through my like 7-year-old body at this boss I couldn't beat, combined with the trauma to my head.
Oh my gosh.
So like I absolutely feel you. I know exactly what that was like. And again, that was a Capcom game. These guys, I tell you what.
I don't know what the deal is. Somewhere out there, I'll tell one more embarrassing. Well, it's not like that embarrassing, but it's a little embarrassing. Somewhere out there exists a picture of of me standing in front of our, whatever it was, 26-inch, Sony tube TV. And I think it wasn't the first game I'd beaten, but for whatever reason, my mom took a picture of my sister and I standing in front of the TV when I beat, yes, The Little Mermaid, replete with its 8-bit, renderings of the great Alan Menken and Howard Ashman music.
Right,
and I don't want to see the picture. I would just be so horrified now. But I remember my sister was like, I want to be in the picture. And I was like, you didn't beat the game. I did.
You didn't work for
she
this.
just sat there and watched, it was just such wonderful memories. So that's where the beginning was,
That's great.
And I remember we would go to my grandparents, my mom's folks, and they had a Super Nintendo, and they had the lauded, lore-ridden Super Scope with
the bazooka.
God darn it, that was fun. And even they would play those games with us. They would play, the grandma and grandpa would, but they had two other games, Jeff, and those two games were Mega Man X and a little known game called Sunset Riders. Replete with its
Sunset Riders.
It's a shout out. It's a deep cut for internet video game lore, but. Indeed, so that was cemented. Now, I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. It's the same mistake that Greg Miller made, if you recall. But for whatever reason, I asked for a Sega Genesis. Now, some experiences there. Sonic, of course, amazing. But overall, just horrifically disappointing. The controllers broke. That was the end of it. Then, thank God, I was redeemed, as it were, by the N64, and GoldenEye, of course, swept me off my feet. Now, from here on out, it is basically a PlayStation story. Having owned all the PlayStations, I owned a Wii for a short while.
Well, who didn't?
Yes, indeed. Fair enough. It was at the time I was a youth minister, and it was like automatic youth group. What are you going to do? We'll say a prayer and then play Wii bowling for 45 minutes and then eat pizza, do your own ministry. Thank you, Nintendo Wii. But then it was all PS3, PS4, and now I'm very much in the PlayStation camp. But still a deep love for Nintendo, very deep, and so much so that I would listen to this podcast that I am now appearing on, even though I do not own a Nintendo Switch. And so,
but that doesn't mean that you don't play indies, because
of course,
as we've seen, some of the best indies indeed come to the Switch years after they've been everywhere else.
Sure. And so we do have some things to talk about later on with regard to what I've been playing and what I'm looking forward to, specifically in the indie area, and things that I know will come to both the Switch and to the PlayStation 4. So that's kind of a quick overview. You mentioned the Catholic Forge. Thank you for that. I do host that podcast. It's a Catholic podcast, conversational. We talk about all kinds of issues of life, faith, family, culture, theology, philosophy, church life, prayer, scripture study, all that kind of stuff. So if anyone is interested in those kinds of things, visit us at thecatholicforge.com. We're also on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. So thank you for even mentioning that I come from that side of the podcast universe. Yeah.
Of course. Great. Well, Thanks for the background, Eric. That's fantastic. So we'll get into what we've been playing this week. I've got a couple of Nindies for you. You know, it's interesting. This week, I played 3 games that I had been interested in. Well, one was an impulse buy.
Okay.
And so the first one, I picked up Neurovoider, which got its start as one of the last, I don't know, bigger games to hit the Vita about like 6-9 months ago.
Okay.
Might have been PlayStation Plus. Neurovoider, Josh had mentioned he enjoyed it, is a top-down twin-stick shooter by Flying Oak Games.
Okay.
Sci-fi themed, roguelike style, so you're, trying to progress as much as you can from level to level, clearing out waves of enemies, go into the boss, and, spend your currency, get an upgrade, see how much further you can make it.
Yes.
I still haven't made it all the way to the end, but it's much more attainable than other roguelike games. I played like 60 hours of Dead Cells and never beat the final boss.
Really?
Yeah. Although side note, they got a big update to Dead Cells just in the last week, and it hit all platforms. And I was talking to a friend that is an expert on that game, and they said they gimped the game so that it's much easier to beat it, because there is so much more to do after you beat it the first time. Because the game, I think the technical completion is beating it 4 times. Like there's 4 different ways to complete the run.
Okay.
Now you can quote unquote beat the game in 15 minutes. They wanted to make it easier because they realized so many people were stuck in that first like third to quarter of the game.
Right.
So they wanted to make it easier to get over that hump and then keep the challenge for the later half. So I do want to go back to Dead Cells and try that now. But Neurovoider, I have really enjoyed it. It's frequently on sale for $5 or $7. And it's something that I'm going to go back to more and more. And it has great music, really good graphics, fun. It's a dark sci-fi, gritty art style. But I really enjoy it, and it is available just about everywhere.
Nice.
Something I didn't enjoy was Bit Dungeon Plus. This game is by Dolores Games, and it is always on sale and frequently in the top 20, 30 selling games on the eShop, at least in slower weeks and when it's on sale.
Okay.
I picked it up for $2.99. And it is almost the exact same game I just explained at the highest level. It's like a top-down roguelike, etc.
Sure.
But it's supposed to look like an 8-bit Zelda game. And I don't know. I just found that it feels like the text is hard to read. The graphics are not good. Like there's a good and a bad way to do 8-bit graphics, and they did not do it a good way. It's very muddy and blurry. It feels like the game wasn't upscaled to the Switch. It was stretched, it seems.
Oh boy.
And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just, there was not much love put into the game. And I'm curious if it would have been, I even thought about picking it up on the Vita or the 3DS just out of curiosity to see if on the smaller screen it looked better or in a different aspect ratio.
Yeah.
But, so there are so many games that do that Zelda-like style in the roguelike format on the Switch that it is hard for me to recommend Bit Dungeon Plus at all, unfortunately.
Sure, fair enough.
The other game that I just started playing 2 days ago is a new release on the Switch, and it is called Dungeon Stars by, how do you pronounce that? Riposte? Rip Osty? Rip Osty is my great-grandfather's name.
Really?
No. By Riposte Games and Co. That's the name, Riposte Games & Co. It's $10. Like I said, it's a brand new game. It is a mobile port, and it is very similar in my feelings about it to Vertical Drop Heroes. Like, the game is kind of garbage, but I can't stop playing it. So I think I'm going to have to do a Let's Play of it this week.
Sure. Oh, yeah, please.
It is a endless runner, kind of. It's a side-scrolling endless runner.
Okay.
So you don't control the movement of the character. The only thing you do is control switching between 3 different characters, which are 3 different colors.
Okay.
Like a rock, paper, scissors. If you're battling red enemies, you use the blue character, and vice versa. And so, across red, green, blue.
Sure.
And your character moves from the left side of the screen to the right side.
Classic.
And there are enemies that are varying levels of difficulty, and you plow through them with a combination of light and heavy attacks and rechargeable special attacks. And you play it, and then you lose a level, but you gain some more gold, and you got a little more powerful, and then you try it again, and it's a mobile game, and I don't know why I can't stop playing it.
So, so all the enemies are one hit?
No, you've definitely got your cannon fodder enemies, but then you've also got like the ranged enemies that are in the back that are causing like poison damage. So you want to get through the cannon fodder so you can knock those guys out. And then you'll have special attacks that can reach across the screen or things like that. The game actually is well done. It has nice, polished, cartoony, humorous graphics. It's got, it's well built. Like, I have no complaints about it being a mobile game. It is a well done mobile game.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be asking me for money, but it's not.
Oh, nice. Good.
But because I already paid for it. But
right.
Is it worth $10? I don't know, but I'm going to do a Let's Play about it. And one of the things I want to do for a Let's Play, the game will automatically use your weak attack if you don't push a button. So you have to tell it to use your strong attack.
Okay.
I'm debating doing a Let's Play where I just talk and don't actually play the game. I just start all the levels and just let it run.
Right.
You don't get very far, but I do think you could beat a couple of levels at a time.
That's fun. That's curious.
But, yeah, it's fun. It's cute. It's a fantastic game to play when you're stuck on conference calls. I'll tell you that much. Dungeon Stars.
All right. Fair enough.
So what about in your world? I know you're not playing many indies right now, but what is keeping your disc spinning if you don't have Joy-Cons to keep synced now?
I do not have Joy-Cons to sync. So I live in the world of the Nindies through you exclusively. When you send me pictures from your phone at 2 a.m. of whatever boss you just beat or whatever level you're in or some, which I love because, it's a part of my gaming experience that I just am not tuned into right now. I don't have the console for it or the system. And so as I mentioned before, predominantly, exclusively playing on PlayStation 4. And some of those things are games, I suppose, that our audience will be familiar with. A little game called Overwatch.
Never heard of it.
Well, you're not missing anything. I'm sure it will never come to the Switch. Maybe it would. Who knows?
That would be awesome.
That would be something if it did. This was a game. I'm not going to explain them all, but this was a game that I really never thought that I would play because I knew what it was. I played in the open beta, the same as I've also played the poor. Crushed hero shooter Battleborn, which had the grave misfortune of coming out before Overwatch, but they just absolutely could not keep up. Anyway, so I played the beta for it, and it was a whole different game at that point. And so then, time passed, and I started hearing some friends talk about it, and they were always looking for more people to play. And I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know. I know about the game, but what I know is that it's a team game. It's a hero shooter, which is fine. First-person shooter, fine. But it's a team game. And if you don't play with your teammates, you will lose. And, of course, I don't care to lose if I can avoid it. Not that I'm like that competitive, but if there's a choice between playing well and winning or playing poorly and losing or throwing, and that's what I was worried about, Jeff, is I thought that if I got in there...
You would bring the team down?
Yeah, they would be like, hey, what are you doing?
Who's the noob?
And I was terrified. And so when I started playing, I picked Mercy as my main, as they say, the person I play the most, predominantly. And she's really easy because you just hold down R2 and point at people. And of course, she does a couple other things, but she's a healer, and that was something they needed on the team. The guy who had been playing healer wanted to do something else. So I kind of hit it at the right moment. and I've been playing ever since. Have many, I think by
that
now,
was like a year ago.
Yeah, yes. So I've many hundreds of hours into it, and it's the reason why things don't get done in my home. And I've learned finally, I've grown up, and I've realized that there is no such thing as, just one with Overwatch. So I'm playing that. I just recently finished another, people are familiar with Red Dead Redemption 2. I finished it, if you can believe it. No one has finished that game except for me.
Not many, that's for sure.
It was something, and I agree and disagree with the reviews that it went on for so long, but what a payoff! It's a masterpiece. It's a masterwork. But you give your life over to it, and so thank God I finished it, and now I can play other games, and so I'm refreshing my palate with the sorbet of God of War, and what a
Never
treat!
Heard of it.
Well, once again, what a treat! From having a game like Red Dead, where, like Breath of the Wild, it's just, you have some vague concept of what to do or where to go, but the game really doesn't care what you do. You can, if you just want to ride your horse and play Spirit of the Smilurin soundtrack, you can do that. If you just want to murder people at night, in alleyways, you can do that. And so going from that to now, God of War, which, is linear. And they say, you can go there or you can go here. But if you go there, you're still going to end up here. What a treat. It's marvelous. Yeah. I've never played another minute of any other God of War game except for this one. I'm so glad it was my first. I am playing an independent game, which you have discussed on this podcast, Skyforce Reloaded. And this was one. Now, Jeff, let me just say for the record that you have never misled me in life. Every game you recommended to me has turned out to be a slam dunk. Okay, and this was one of them. When my friends, I was over with some friends the other night. We were talking about video games, and I was explaining to them. Well, we were talking about some such game, and I said, "Well, it's a roguelike." And they had no idea what this game was. I think we were talking about Don't Starve, and which it's in the category. And
for sure.
And so I said, well, let me tell you about roguelike with RPG elements, and SFR was the game I used as an example. And I also mentioned your great love affair with Dead Cells. As examples of, this is kind of how, and of course I also talked about Rogue Legacy, from which the whole thing got its name.
Right.
So SFR is awesome. Now this is a game that it's hard to say just once, but when it's like 3:45 in the morning and you got to stop, but you you've got like 15 minutes left of energy before your wife comes downstairs and threatens you again, then you can get in like 2 or 3 runs of that level you're working on to get the stars, to get the next upgrade, to get you that much closer. Yep. And so I have had just a wonderful time with it. A wonderful
And I
time.
think some of the best roguelike is when you said 2 things there that when I'm thinking of an awesome roguelike, I use those terms. One of them is the runs. When you're going to take a run at the game, when the notion is you've been doing and you say like, I'm going to take a run at the game, because that's not always what you're doing. And like in Skyforce Reloaded, or like in Dead Cells, or in any really good roguelike, there are times where my goal isn't to get the highest score or to get as far as I can. My goal this time is to save all the people on the ground. My goal is to get as many orbs and bank them as I can. You will replay the same level with the different objectives, and in turn, it almost, I don't want to say it makes it open world, but it makes it to where you play the game how you want to accomplish the ultimate goal of, getting to the end, getting that big run. And that is what makes a roguelike awesome. Yeah,
that's really well said. And so I'm really enjoying that, just a little bit at a time, with no pretense. Yeah, I think I used to be more of a trophy hunter, and now I've kind of gotten away from that, although I still like to chase trophies in games where I feel it's realistic. And so I think that that's one that I'll probably chase really progressively over time. A couple other things just quickly. Before I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, there was a game I was playing called Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
So that's the one where you can throw your hat, right? And it turns into a T-Rex, right? Cappy?
That is exactly wrong. But
the wrong Odyssey.
But the spirit is there. I went from those blue Mediterranean waters to the hill country of whatever it's called in Red Dead Redemption. So eventually getting back to that, and also another indie that's on the what do they call it? The cross media bar on the PlayStation? Whatever, the home screen,
whatever it is
Hollow Knight. Have not opened it, but you have shared with it. I know I'm excited to play it. I just saw on Games Done Quick. Is that what it's called? Games Done? Yeah. That some guy beat it, in like 4 minutes or whatever. So
that's nuts.
I'm teasing.
I'm sure.
But a preposterous time. Actually, I did see, because we had talked about it back in the day, of how tight are they going to get this Breath of the Wild time down? And I think I saw one that was like 45 minutes. I mean, it just...
And you know what happens is and then eventually some new trick is discovered in 4 years. I love that.
The Mario 64-ness of it. Where they're like, oh, did you know that you could... Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's so interesting the way they do Breath of the Wild. Maybe somebody will correct me if this has been bypassed, but the thing with Breath of the Wild is that the first 3 or 4 dungeons or shrines have to be completed so that you can get off of the Great Plateau, because that is how you get the glider. And so it's not just getting to the end. It's, when you watch an awesome Games Done Quick, they have those like key milestones. And the big one for Zelda is the time to get the glider, because they've figured out how to like launch yourself enough up there to use the glider and fall and make it to Ganon and all that stuff. But yeah, that stuff's awesome. I am so glad that you got Hollow Knight. That's actually another one that I was playing this week.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I was telling you, I don't know, I was watching or listening to something and somebody was talking about it and made me yearn for that game again. And, it was because they announced Silk Song.
Yes.
Which was supposed to be the last DLC for Hollow Knight and turned into a sequel.
Right. That's amazing.
It has a new, not a new character, another character that's in the game.
Yeah.
But they just kind of built so many new mechanics that they said, hey, this is a new game.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'll say about it is it was absolutely delightful that after not playing that game since probably Christmas break, how easy it was to just pick back up.
That's awesome.
And how 10 minutes in, I immediately was saying to myself, this is the best I've ever felt a video game feel in my hands. Like to control a character around the screen. I've never felt it better than that.
Wow.
And I thought that last time I played it, and I felt it immediately coming back in and saying, I know I'm good at this. What are the controls? And still saying, oh yeah, this is how I dash. Oh, that's the best dash ever in a game.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's
awesome.
Phenomenal game.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I just did go and find it if anyone else is curious. The current world record on speedrun.com for Breath of the Wild without amiibo is 30 minutes and 10 seconds.
Wow.
And with amiibo is 29 minutes and 44 seconds. Not by the same person, although the person who has the no amiibo record has the number 2 with amiibo record. So they have really and of course you have to prove that you've done this, and so they all like there's a video, you can go watch it, and those are fun to watch. Now, do you want me to get into some of these indies I'm looking forward to? Would you like me to say that now or save that for another time?
Let's elevator music go. I'm gonna sit here and think about it for a minute.
Sure.
Got the little doom 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 doom. Was I just singing?
Was that
from Ipanema?
Yeah, I was like, is that that's Ricky Don't Lose That Number or Girl from Ipanema? Yeah. That's or we could just go ahead. Whatever you want.
Go ahead. What kind of games are you looking forward to that are going to be coming out soon in the indie world?
So speaking just of indies, did you and Josh talk about Hades on the podcast?
Yeah. We're both big fans of Supergiant.
God darn, does that game look fun? And the reviews have been, all right so far, the reaction to it. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, I hope this comes to PS4, but there's no plan for it yet. So I'm just kind of hoping that eventually they'll port it over, because it looks...
They got to.
Yeah, this looks like a lot of fun. Shout out to our dude Damon Hatfield of Scoop, the Omega Cops, because he is the champion of Spelunky, and Spelunky 2 is on the radar. So I'm really looking forward to that. Another indie that's certainly gained quite a bit of fame, Life is Strange. I played, let me say, my wife, who does not play a lot of video games, she played through the first season, loved it deeply, had a very profound emotional connection to it. And so season 2 is out now, but episodes 2 through 5 are not. So we're going to wait for the whole thing.
Yeah, there was a big gap there.
The other ones seem to come out much quicker, but who knows what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to wait for the whole thing, and then I'll get it, and then we'll play through it. And then lastly, I sent you this game earlier today, a game called Sable. Which is also the name of a very dear friend. But this game I just kind of found wandering around, this kind of, oh gosh, I don't even know how to describe it, Jeff, like comic art action adventure game. Very,
that's a good description.
So very interesting to me. Just kind of stumbled upon it. So I was like, ooh, this is kind of fun. So that's just some indies that I'm looking forward to. Although I think I had some listed somewhere else. Oh, that's it. So so that's what I have on the radar.
Yeah, that Sable game, I don't know if that one's coming out. I'm looking to see, because I know that it's coming out on PC and Xbox, and I think it's on PS4. It was announced at E3 last year, and I loved, as soon as you sent me that trailer, I totally dug the song in it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I pulled out my phone and let the Google Assistant listen, and it couldn't find it. And so I started typing it in, and immediately autocomplete was like, oh, clearly other people are trying to figure it out. And it is a indie artist named, her name is Michelle Zahner, but she goes by the name Japanese Breakfast. And her second album, Soft Sounds from Another Planet, is where they're getting the music, and she designed the music for this game. And go check out the trailer for Sable. It does look, it almost looks like they took something like a Journey. Another great indie game. They took like Journey and turned it into more of like an action-y game.
Yes.
Something bigger.
And shout out to Michelle, because it is an awesome song. And
yeah, it really is.
That's wonderful. You and I have talked extensively about video game music, preposterously long conversations, and how we both would love to write for a game. And I put together little tracks and send them to you sometimes, just little fun little keyboard, machinations and stuff. And so it's awesome to see that, where who knows how they found her or whatever, and then here she is, boom, she was at open mic night at McMenamin's bar and grill 2 weeks ago, and then now boom, she's got her music inside of a video game. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and now hopefully the game does really well, and she can launch a career off it. That'd be amazing.
That would be awesome.
So before we dive into the stuff that's coming out this week, I do want to say that we have a code for Aragami Shadow Edition. And so Aragami Shadow Edition is a cel-shaded, it looks kind of like Tenchu from the old PS1 days, like ninja, really cool comic booky art style looking thing about hiding in the shadows. It's a new, mid-price $30 indie game by Merge Games, who has made some good titles on the eShop recently.
Sure.
And I looked at that, and as you know, listeners, Josh loves stealth games, and they are not my cup of tea. Unless there is a certain snake that is solid, I typically stay away from stealth games.
Fair enough.
And so I suggested to Josh that instead of me redeeming the code, because I didn't think I'd play much of it, when Josh comes back, we hear his thoughts about the game, which, by the way, is getting some really good reviews right now. I think it's got a Metacritic in like the upper 70s, maybe low 80s. It's getting overall positive reviews.
Nice.
Maybe we'll try to give that away as some kind of giveaway. So
Sweet. That's awesome.
Stay tuned for that. Maybe we'll have Josh pop in for a brief moment in an episode.
Sure.
But with that, Eric, let's dive into what's coming out on the eShop through February 28th.
Let's do it. On February 22nd, that's tomorrow. Friday the 22nd, Quest for the Golden Duck. Now, this sounds like some kind of sounds as I don't know, like a song that like Styx was going to record, but then they thought about it like overnight. And they came back the next day and they're like, "Look, man, we can't put
We
this.
had too much last night. We really shouldn't.
Quest for the Golden Duck," something, whatever. But By Bigosaur is a top-down 1 to 4 player game that mixes Pac-Man, outstanding, Gauntlet, shout out to Ready Player One, and Stealth, easy Jeff, into one game where everyone is, you guessed it, on a quest to find the Golden Duck, and it launches at 50% off. That can't be for the first week for $5. So that sounds that is a mingling of things, is what that is.
I mean, that is a $5 game about ducks or a duck. I actually don't know if there are multiple ducks or if it is one duck. It must be the Golden Duck.
That's awesome. It sounds. I mean, it sounds like a game that would be in the arcade in 1982. Also on the 22nd is Tyr Chains of Valhalla. So this strikes a chord in me because we have Valhalla and Tyr and Chains in God of War right now, which I'm playing. But this probably has nothing to do with that at all, because from NUE Studio is a 2.5D action game with a rad American anime art style about taking down evil corporations with all kinds of mechanics like air dashing, wall jumping, and using a slew of bombastic weapons and guns. It's it's like if the Strider team made a Mega Man X game, shout out to Mega Man X, and it launches for $10.
This one looks cool, and it actually does have a lot of Norse mythology in it.
I love that.
But it's like hold on, I got to look at one of the examples.
Sure.
Oswald Den, otherwise known as Odin, is the evil corporation like overlord. Yeah.
Sure. That's fun. Oh man, that's so fun.
You have to go to the summit of Valhalla to stop the evil plans of Lemu Oki, otherwise Loki. And so, gosh. Yeah, but it's all like very far-flung sci-fi.
Right.
It looks really cool.
Yeah.
I'm totally checking this game out. As much as I play a lot of 2D games, this one seems like it is just a straightforward, flashy action game. So I'm digging this one so far.
I wonder if they had some Tyr. I wonder if they had some inspiration from God of War, or thought maybe. Because God of War is kind of still in the ether, like, people are thinking of. I mean, as soon as I saw the name, I was like, boom! I thought of Tyr's Temple in the game, Valhalla, Chain. It was all there, so maybe there's some association. And lastly, on February 22nd, launching by, oh my gosh! Now you have to help me if I say it wrong. I don't want to upset someone.
We still don't know. We say this all the time.
Ratalaika.
That's what I think.
Ratalaika Games for $5 is Daggerhood, a retro-inspired 2D action platformer about getting into a boss chamber, defeating a boss, stealing the loot or booty, and fighting your way out across 5 worlds and 100 levels. Awesome.
Yeah, and Ratalaika, we've got a good relationship with them. Probably should be a little better since we don't know how to pronounce their name. But they've made some great games. I I think they've done a really good job. We've gotten from them Heroes Trials, One More Dungeon, Shadow of Loot Box, Devious Dungeon, one of my favorites. They've done a really good job of finding games that maybe aren't good enough to get their own publishing deals and giving them the funding they need, doing a little bit of incubation.
Yes.
And so I would say on average, their games are probably Metacritic in like the upper 50s, lower 60s. So they're not hitting the mark yet, but they do have these gems that stand out. And I do think every game is truly... There's a big difference between a 61 Metacritic on a crappy game that has a good idea and a good game that has a younger development team. And,
that's awesome.
And I think Ratalaika has a lot of first games from developers that when they get around to making their third and fourth games, they're going to be churning out really good products. And so I really do like supporting the games that they come out with. And Daggerhood looks like a lot of fun. It's
just wonderful to see a studio that can do so because you hear those claims, especially from larger video game companies, we support the independent developer, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's, of course, it's wonderful when, Sony invests in smaller studios, but it's also sort of endearing to see smaller studios investing in like, oh my gosh, I was just reading about, what game was it? It was an indie that was coming out, and it was made by two guys in like a shed in Boston or something like that.
I mean, that's so many of them.
And so even for a smaller studio who came from that experience to go to them and say, let's partner with you, let's get the assets in place to get this game to the market. That is awesome because those games will be the next Minecrafts and Apex Legends.
Yeah, one of them will be that for sure.
Yes.
And, to your point, it is great when we see Sony, hey, we're going to partner with this school and we're going to put out, what was that game? What was that game that they did with they're now doing the spray painting game, Concrete Giant or whatever it's called now.
Oh gosh.
That one, Concrete Genie is the new game.
Sure.
And the last one they made is like the floating through space kind of music-based game. It's really good.
Yes.
Oh, well, it's pretty good. But, it's great to see Sony, multi-billion-dollar company, say, we're going to do that, and we're going to support 4 games a year.
Yeah.
Ratalaika is 3 guys, and they've put 19 games out on the Switch.
Yeah, so props to those guys, man. That's awesome.
Most of them are at least worth your time. So
hit us up on Twitter at Nindie Nation and give us the phonetic pronunciation, please.
Yeah, please.
So we can get that right next time. Thank you.
So next on February 26th, what's that, next Tuesday?
Yes.
We have a game that I was all ready to make fun of, and then I looked at it and I was like, ooh, I kind of want to get this. It is a totally sweet looking new game from Nicalis, which is definitely one of the larger indie developers, and they are a developer publisher that found a big home on the Vita and have since packed their things up and moved down the street to the Switch. It is an anime-inspired hack and slash that gives me like Japanese Bastion vibes. It looks like a Bastion or maybe like a Hades or something like that. Very colorful, fast, lots of really high-pitched voice acting that is like ear-piercing in the trailer. But it looks really, really fun. It's got a roguelike element to it, so you're constantly building up your character, trying to progress further, things like that. Hacking, slashing, mashing buttons, using your spells on cooldown. And the cool thing is that the whole game is 2-player co-op. I'm a little turned off that it's $40.
Okay.
But I'm putting it on the wish list. Maybe it'll go on sale, or maybe the reviews will be phenomenal and I'll have to get it. So. And
did you say the title? I don't think you did. I think you missed it. Because I was waiting for you to say it, because I was going to say it sounds like some kind of like mid-70s Crosby, Stills and Nash song. It's called Remy Lore, Lost Girl in the Lands of Lore, or something like that. Lost Girl in the Lands of Lore. What a great name.
Yeah, and it's totally cool. And yeah, I was so excited about the game that I forgot to say the name of it. So the next game I'm not going to miss because it's totally rad. This game is called Rad Rogers Radical Edition. And it's by Handy Games. And I don't know if that's like never mind. I'm not going to get into it. It is self-proclaimed as the return of the 90s platformer.
Love it.
Which made me kind of want to lean in and be like, have you looked at the indie scene recently? Because
right.
It's like somebody being like, dude, did you hear that vinyls are back?
Fair enough.
It features game characters from the 90s, such as Duke Nukem and Lo Wang from Shadow Warrior.
No, just what is happening with these ensemble Love Actually equivalents of all these goldarn games? You got the game from 2 weeks ago, or was it last week, with the game with Jesus is in a game, and now every single Tekken game. Tekken 9 has Negan from The Walking Dead. Now you've got Rad Rogers with the Lo Wang and the Duke Nukem. The Toads are probably in there. You got
the Battletoads and Killer Instinct.
It kind of is happening a lot, though, these ensemble games. I don't even know how they're getting away with the licensing. Maybe it's different on visual assets, but it seems like we're seeing this a lot.
Brawlhalla, not Brawlhalla. That one has all the Ubisoft characters.
Broforce was a play on it, but the one, oh gosh.
The one indie battler that has like Shovel Knight and all that. And then we played, during Extra Life, we played Rumbo, and that had Shantae and Shovel Knight and the guy from Hyperlight Drifter and all that. So I'll answer your question with another question. You referenced what's with all these Love Actually ensembles. Let me ask you, what happened with Love Actually?
Well, I mean, it spawned a whole generation of ensemble movies,
and it became one of the quintessential viewings during the holiday season. So
fair enough.
You throw enough names in there, there's something for everyone. I think that's it. I mean, shoot, when we played Rumbo, the first thing I did was play as Shantae. Oh, I love Shantae. So
and certainly no one has done it better than the Smash, the Super Mario, whatever the hell it's called, the Smash game with everyone in it. Jeff,
Smash Brothers,
whatever it's called. I don't know about it really, but whatever.
The Smash of Super Brothers and.
It's brothers and they're smashing.
It's the mega edition and
very violent. Anyway, so Rad Rogers sounds like my cup of tea if I drank it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, this one it's gorgeous. It looks like a Rayman game. Got that like kind of hand painted visual style, but you're blowing everything up.
Yes,
it looks pretty good. I mentioned in our show notes that it really gave me the feeling of the kind of game that I would go to Blockbuster and rent for the Super Nintendo.
Yes.
That I would never remember what the name is, but I spent a whole weekend with it and played the whole game all the way through.
Yes.
It seems like that. It is $30 though. There's a lot of expensive games coming out, and like I hate to hate on indie games for the price that they're charging. Mm-hmm. It's just hard when you're trying to buy games to talk about them on a podcast.
Sure.
So there's that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Have you seen anything from this Sky Hill Point and Survive game?
I have not.
This one is interesting.
Okay.
It's made by Clubator, and it's $15.
Okay.
It's really weird. So it takes itself very seriously. It's about imagine you go to a party, and while you're at the party, the apocalypse happens, and how do you get out? How do you get home?
Like in Cloverfield, like that?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, very much. That's what it looks like.
Horrifying. Excellent.
Yes. It is a 2D kind of you played Fallout Shelter, right?
I platinumed Fallout Shelter
against
all better judgment. And I did play Fallout 4 and stopped. So, yes.
Okay. And so it looks like when you would zoom in on Fallout Shelter so that you can see like 3 or 4 rooms at a time.
Okay.
Or otherwise, it looks like This War of Mine, for those of you who have played that game.
Okay.
Very zoomed in, 2D. You could see your character through the walls kind of thing. but the combat is also similarly themed to like Fallout, where you point at a character, you click, and it pulls up what part of their body you want to attack.
Yes, yeah.
And the whole thing is collecting things, surviving, getting to the next area, trying to ultimately survive through this apocalypse. It's $15. Looks pretty interesting. This one is probably a Josh game, but
okay.
I have a feeling this one might end up doing pretty well.
Sure.
What about the 27th? We've got a game coming out that day.
There is a game coming out that day. It's called The Lost Light of Sisu by Solvarg, and it's their first title on the eShop, so welcome to the eShop environment. It's a 2D puzzle physics platformer about a little ball of light. Now, there seem to be lots of balls of light in these Nintendo games. I don't know about that, but there they are, and it's rolling around and getting into all kinds of physics predicaments. Physics games are outstanding. They are I think that if I was playing games now, physics games would be the tailspin of games for me. Frustrating. It's so fun, but you just like, why can't it be like real life? It's video game, of course. It's $10, and it seems like it's going to have to do a lot to stand out in a sea of these 2D physics platformers where you play as, yes, a ball or a box or a ball of light. So then there is a lot out there, indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
On February 28th, rounding out the month, you're probably familiar with that first one, aren't you?
I'm sorry to say I'm not.
Are you familiar with Undertale?
Yes.
So Deltarune, which is Deltarune Chapter 1, featured in last week's Nintendo Direct, launches for free.
Yes.
And it is the pseudo not really a sequel to Undertale, but don't play it unless you beat Undertale sequel to Undertale.
Right.
And I have watched so many videos on Undertale and read so much about that game. I probably could have just played it to completion by now, and I still don't understand what the hell that game is or why people like it.
Right.
But everybody that seems to like Undertale seems to love Deltarune, so get you some next week.
All right.
Why don't you keep going?
I would be glad to ape out. The next big release by Devolver Digital is a stylish and gory top-down action game a la Hotline Miami, perhaps, to the soundtrack of rhythmic violence and frenetic jazz. So shout out to Jazz, shout out to La La Land and Jazz, and but the game is about escaping from those who captured you by brutally murdering them, and it launches for $15. So if you're like me and you play the Overwatch and you have issues with the Winston character, but you want to be like in rage mode, his ultimate all the time, this is a game for you, okay? So ape out, please, to your heart's content. And also on the 28th is Void, V-O-I-D. It's a $3 title that, well, probably sucks. But it's by shovelware publisher Jandu Soft. And like their other releases, this is also clearly written by someone who used Google Translate. Sorry to say, but you're going to be reading a bit. Good luck with that.
From the eShop itself.
Oh boy, here we go.
Old school arcade platform tribute. Void, V-O-I-D, is all new side-scrolling action-adventure game, taking best aspects of 8- and 16-bit era classics and transforming them with modern tech and fresh mechanics into something new and exciting. Ploids are the evolution of the human race by merging technology with its DNA. Our planet is invaded by a race from another galaxy which destroys everything it touches to become thus with absolute power. After some time, a group of Ploids decides to take action and return the peace. To achieve this, Alpha and Omega must travel through time to eras of ancient land in order to obtain sacred stones that will give them necessary power to defeat the invaders. Some of the ancient epics are feudal Japan, the Ice Age, the medieval era, or among others. What he does not know is that the invaders tried to get those holy stones before him.
Of course. Of course. Thinking ahead.
In addition, wait for it.
Oh boy.
Time threatens to collapse.
Oh boy.
And only you can connect to the ploids to save the Earth. I can't do this.
Look, okay, we understand. You know, you like Chrono Trigger, everyone does, and you love the Avengers and you want the Infinity Stones in there, okay? This has gone too far. Shut it down.
Wait, once you select your character and due to its peculiar characteristics, the game will take a different style or high-speed platforms or a shooter platforms. From the beginning of the game, you can select 2 characters depending on which you choose. You will have different abilities which have their pro and con, just one each. Another important factor in the game is, depending on the character you select, you will have to take different routes throughout the game, which provides a totally different game experience. You can buy this puzzle pile of shit for $3.39 on February 28th.
Save yourself the trouble, you know, just be like me, you know, 3 McChickens and a McDouble from McDonald's will make you feel just as good. So, but I mean, you know, it's such a voyage. It's such a tale of harrowing, danger, adventure. I'm almost attracted to it. Just to see how they, if they could do this.
Right.
You know, because if you read me the description, well, and you have tried to describe like Kingdom Hearts, and we're like, what? And Mickey's in it somehow, you know. But this is you know. Anyway, thank you for that. I'm ready to go to bed now. Thank you, Dad, for a story time. I appreciate it.
Indeed. Let's get through these next few on February 28th.
Battaloon by Unties is a 4-player party game about bouncing balloons and bumping each other into spikes. And you can do that too if you want to spend $7. Sounds like borrowing from the Mario Kart a little bit with the balloon business. Anodyne is the first title by No double N triple O. No, I don't know how I'm a musician, but I'm not sure how to break up the syllables there. So it's there. It's a $10 Zelda throwback about the protagonist's subconscious.
Ninja Village from Kairosoft.
Okay.
It's the same damn thing Kairosoft releases every damn week. It's a $12 mobile port of a free-to-play time-wasting simulator. This time it has ninjas.
Well, there it is. Constructor Plus is a simulation building game where I'm talking about you, have to build an empire. Shout out to Age of Empires. By building buildings, Age of Empires 2 especially, by building buildings while thwarting off the mob, natural disasters, and other natural and unnatural things that want to build their buildings. So you, the builder, can't build the biggest building. It's built by System 3 software and costs 20 bills.
My girlfriend is a mermaid.
How most of my wet dreams start. I'm sorry, stop. Please, okay.
No, but really, My Girlfriend is a Mermaid by Sekai Games.
Okay.
I mean, I looked at a couple screenshots, and guys, this is exactly what you think it is. And
oh boy, here we go.
For the right person, it's probably worth every one of the $25 it will cost. Oh, next we have Crash Dummy.
Okay.
It's not only an overpriced mobile title at best, it is also grounds for copyright infringement from the hit 90s brand Crash Test Dummies.
Yes.
You remember the Crash Test Dummies? The toys, the TV shows?
Of course.
The commercials made it look like it would all break apart, and when you'd actually try it, they'd just like pop, and they'd all stay in place from the cars and everything. Not to be confused with the hit 90s group Crash Test Dummies. And instead of telling you about this game, you probably shouldn't buy it. Eric, could you please sing the chorus to Crash Test Dummies' hit song from the summer of 1994?
That is exactly the title of the song, and the refrain of the song does not waste its time, and it simply goes like this. And then later on it repeats itself, and there's also an O section. So I think that was probably better off than playing the game. I don't know about you.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah. From the creators of such hits as BB and Tina, Adventures with Horses, and BB Bloxburg, Big Boom Race 2, Treva brings the heat with Monster Dynamite. It's $20, and you know what? I don't know what song to use to express the power of Monster Dynamite, but I have my guitar here, and let me just see if I can't summon a Monster Dynamite song. Monster Dynamite. That was an unbelievable take. Close the gate on that track.
Was that the first time we ever recorded something together? A song? I grabbed the tambourine.
Well, if I had known the tambourine was in play, I would have gone for a gospel sound or borrowed the, anyway. So, Monster Dynamite, $20. Please enjoy.
Finally, Fimble. It looks like someone, possibly the publisher, Eurovideo Median, took God of War and made it a PS2 style Diablo clone.
Okay.
You know, I was thinking about it. At least they've started putting the $30 shovelware games at the bottom of the new release list on the eShop. So they did make that change. This game looks like garbage.
Right.
It has the entire, every screenshot has the entire UI, like all buttons, what they do mapped on the screen at all times. Like, do you really, it's really that hard? Like, it says like Y, heavy attack, A, strong, light attack. It's like the whole game, it takes up like 20% of the screen.
Oh my gosh.
One bonus for everybody.
Sure.
One day later, on March 1st, Toe Jam and Earl, Back in the Groove, developed by the original 4 people that created the first Toe Jam and Earl.
That's awesome.
And I've pre-ordered it, and I really wish I would have backed the Kickstarter and got some of the extra goodies. I am scared to death that this game is going to come out, and people are going to complain that it is exactly what Toe Jam and Earl is.
Oh, no, right.
Do you know what Toe Jam and Earl is? It's a roguelike.
It absolutely is. You're absolutely right.
It's a roguelike. It's one of the very earliest, if not the earliest, console roguelike.
Yep.
And so, time will tell. Does modernizing it, making it look like a Saturday morning cartoon and bringing that original style back, does it finally meet the time where its type of game is popular, or does it end up looking dated in comparison?
Yeah.
I think I'm going into it with the right expectations, and I think I'm setting myself up to love the game. It's going to have some major problems for me to not like it. I'm really, really excited for Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove March 1st, and it's exciting that it's an indie, so we get to talk about it, because the first 3 were not indies.
All right. That's awesome.
Let us dive in to the games that are on sale. Now, before we get to it,
sure,
these games are at least on sale through February 28th, unless otherwise noted.
Okay.
And we can just tag team these. So, Eric, take me on down to the eShop digital sale.
Take me on down to the eShop, go wow. This war of mine is 40% off, and so your grand total will be a $23.99 bill.
I feel like that game has been a lot cheaper on other platforms. I don't know, though. It might have been free on, like, Xbox, but I still haven't played it. I want to, though. One that I am really thinking about picking up this week is Xenon Valkyrie Plus. It's a roguelike platformer with randomly generated levels and RPG elements.
Children, rejoice!
It's 20% off for $7.99. I looked up the Metacritic, and for the most part, people say that the game's way too hard for its own good and that it ends up hurting the progression. I still watched a couple of videos. It looks really cool. It's got a neat art style, really, really rad soundtrack. So we'll see. I hope I don't buy it, and I feel like I did with Enter the Gungeon, where it was truly just like too frustrating to get into. So we'll see. $8, it's not a bad risk to take.
If you remember 2 hours ago, Jeff, you talked about a game called Aragami, a Shadow Edition. If you can go back in time with Void, use the polyps or whatever the hell they deployed. Go chase them through time. Aragami Shadow Edition. Stealth game, more for Josh, less for Jeff, is 10% off, ringing you up at the counter for $26.99.
And Conduct Together is a really cute, fun-looking co-op train puzzler.
Oh,
so
nice.
if you're feeling left out, you completed everything. You 3-starred all the challenges in Overcooked 2. This would be looks like a good type of game to try with maybe some of your non-gamer friends. It's 25% off at $14.99.
And by the way, my wife and I did 3-star all the levels in Overcooked 2, and then they
Did you really?
They had the nerve to put in another star, and it is sometimes the scores are 4 times higher than the 3-star amount. And so we tried the first level, right? The Bunny Hill level, could not do it. And we said, surely, and we are coordinated enough to get the other stars.
Right.
Yeah. And so we're like, surely this, I mean, we're doing everything we can. It must be meant for 4 players. You know, that's the only way that you could have that kind of efficiency.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So shout out to Overcooked. Escape Dudeland is still...
Excuse me, Dudeland. Pardon me, Dudeland. Do you have
it
any
is
Grey
it is
Poupon?
still 99 cents, 90% off until
Do you remember this game?
February 25th. I do not.
This was the game that Josh and I were playing on the Extra Life stream.
Okay.
That was the really crude art style where you were the dude that jumped by farting, and it had the real ugly monster that was chasing you the whole time.
Yes! Horrifying. I had nightmares about it later.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's pretty gross looking, but
oh my
I
gosh.
totally think that one's worth it for 99 cents. That's actually a good game.
Yeah, for $1, absolutely.
One that I am, God, the next 2 are still on my, like, I need to play these games. Moonlighter, the Diablo-like game where you are the shopkeeper.
Okay.
Is still 25% off for $18.74, only until February 25th. But I wanted to point that out because they just announced a smorgasbord of free updates and DLC, like a whole pack of DLC that's coming to the game for free in about a month. And so I would suspect that this is probably your last chance to get the game at a discount before they pump some more value into it.
And the other game, and now, Jeff, 50% off, Can You Resist, is Mana Spark.
I know. Top-down, roguelike. I played some of that also on the Extra Life stream with Josh, and found it to be pretty difficult, but really interested. Really interested.
Okay.
Do you remember The Gardens Between? It was an indie darling for a couple of months, like maybe a year ago.
I do not.
Was
sorry.
All of the screenshots, it looks like an island, like in the middle of the ocean, and very polygonal art style with a boy and a girl that are like walking around the island, and it's telling a story as you're moving around the island. So it's almost like a different perspective of a Myst kind of thing, telling a story through the puzzles you're solving. Won tons of awards, and I think it came out just at a really bad time because I don't think it sold very well. But also until February 25th, it is on sale for 50% off for $10.
And lastly, rounding out the bunch, that game that I don't know that anyone understands it. I don't know that even the creators have come out and revealed the secrets, and that is Undertale, which is 33% off, and it's going to charge you $9.99. It's going to cost you $9.99. You will be charged $9.99 by the Nintendo Bank or whatever institution is behind the, curtain.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Old Reggie, before he retires, he's going to take that money right out of your pocket.
Shout out to Reggie. Last shout out of the show.
Shout out.
We just saw that news today. He's retiring, and even, not being a big Nintendo guy in recent years, everyone knows Reggie. You know the memes, but a stand-up man and truly for the players. Of course, I remember him and Shuhei at E3, when the PS4 was announced and they making fun of Xbox. This is how this is how you share a game on PS4, and they had, and what a cool guy to even stand in and literally to stand in the middle of Xbox and Microsoft, or Microsoft and Sony as they're feuding,
right.
And just be like, I don't care. And so,
right.
So shout out to Reggie, man. Thank you, brother, for all that hard work and effort. Thank you.
Yeah, Reggie's legacy will live on.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's kind of the end of an era with Nintendo. Perrin Kaplan, who was one of the people alongside Reggie as the VP of marketing, who really helped Nintendo usher in, get their groove back. After the GameCube was starting to falter,
right.
And when they were realizing that they need to expand the audience because the audience that grew up with Nintendo had moved on to the PlayStation and were now mature gamers. They needed to figure out how to expand that audience with the Wii.
Yes.
You've got those folks, and then you've got the passing of Satoru Iwata just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He took so much heat for the initial failure of the 3DS and the abysmal failure of the Wii U, and hopefully in his life now is able to see the massive success of the Switch, because he was the reason all of that got put in place the way it did.
Sure.
So there's a big turning of the what's the phrase? A big passing of the torch, or changing of the hands,
changing
or
of the
whatever.
guard. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I was looking for. Yeah,
changing of the seasons, whatever. Yeah.
Something that was probably referenced in Fire Emblem, but so a lot of changes afoot at Nintendo, and at least in this instance, everybody that is taking over is inheriting something great, and so we'll see great things to come. But that is for another podcast. And I want to say that if you would like to discuss your memories of Reggie, your games that you've been playing on your Switch, things that you might be interested in, or if you just want to chat, Eric is on our Facebook page.
Yes, I am.
You can chat with him there.
I will keep a weather eye on the comments section of this episode, and I would be glad to talk with you about my limited to no experience with the Nintendo Switch. Literally 7 minutes that Jeff let me play on his when I was in his home. But glad to talk, and what a treat to be on the show, Jeff. Thank you, brother.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for standing in this week. If you want to find us, I am at Nindie Jeff. Eric is at Kazat?
No, I on Twitter at EDF Thompson, EDFTHOMPSON, and you can find my little podcast, The Catholic Forge, at The Catholic Forge, and also on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
Awesome. As always, please take a look at our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook. Got some Let's Plays up there. Going to put up a new Let's Play of Dungeon Stars soon. I might actually get around to that tomorrow morning. So,
nice. That's awesome.
Don't tell my managers, but
I will not.
Those things are easy to pump out and get on YouTube, so I'm looking forward to doing that.
Good.
Also, you can find Nindie Nation on Twitter at Nindie Nation. Keep an eye out. We've got a couple of codes that we've been hoarding that we want to give out, so please keep your eyes peeled there. Until next week, when we will be joined by Nintendo Nostalgia's own host, Jacob Rush. Eric, thank you for joining today. I'm Jeff. We are kind of Nindie Nation this week, and we'll see you next week to sync our Joy-Cons up once again.